I like to say my grown-up name is Socorro Green, but everyone, including my students, call me Coco or Miss Coco. I am a prevention specialist with Youth 180. This month actually will make 5 years, so I'm very excited. And I come from a small town in Hunt County, and the drugs are pretty rampant there. It's a college town, so there's a lot of recreational drug use, but there's also a lot of systemic drug use. And fentanyl has made a big impact in that we've lost several, I would say, young adults. I saw the damage it could do to families, and I wanted to talk to students about how the effects of substance use misuse can affect themselves, but also how it has a ripple effect throughout their family and the community. I know that from my family story, my daughter, who was, just like any other student that I see in a classroom, she was a part of drill team. She was an AB student, and she worked so hard to maintain those grades. She had dreams. She had so many gifts and talents, and she began, experimenting like I think any other teenager in high school would. And I was alarmed as a parent, but I wasn't extremely like, I was like, well, in our house, it's illegal for you to do that. You shouldn't do that. But I didn't rise up as a parent when my daughter started, quote unquote, acting out. We thought in our family, we would say, oh, she's in rebellion. Oh, she's making these really bad choices and she's doing these things. We thought, well, she's got a smile on her face. Everything is okay. But in fact, what she was dealing with was really deep and dark and hard for her to articulate because we didn't have the vocabulary we have now. She became addicted to many different things, opioids being one of them. On my part, I just was fighting to keep her in school. She met a guy that was, quite a few years older than she was, and she just went down a path. And as a parent, it was like watching a train wreck. You could scream as loud as you can to say, stop this behavior, stop, you don't know what you're doing. But then you hope it's just for a short period of time and she'll begin to recover and she'll, come out of it and she will start going down whatever the right path is for her. But sadly, in our case, that didn't happen. In our case, we had, months of sobriety versus, months of at times not knowing where she was. It just seemed as much as she tried that she could not overcome the substance use disorder by herself. I would drive up and down the streets of, different places that I would see that she had called from, or, context clues for messages I would get from her. I was, looking to find her. And sadly, there were times when she was homeless. And in the meantime, she had a son, and her son is my grandson, and he's one of my favorite people on the earth. And well over a year ago, December of 2021, I got the phone call that no parent wants to get. And even if they're adults, my worst nightmare came true. And I do this work and I send this message to both students, their parents, grandparents, and community members that this is something that I never want you to experience. I never want you to experience getting that phone call. I wish that she had had a Youth 180 to give her the vocabulary. I wish that my family had a Youth 180 to sit down, and I have the honor of helping facilitate one of our family ed programs, and I read those packets and in preparation for it. And sometimes, like right now, I'm getting a little choked up because the information in there is so amazing and it's so powerful. And if parents could grab hold of it, we could change entire generations. We could stop the cycle of poverty, depression, substance use disorders, violence, and all the things that come with, having a student or a child that's living in a traumatic, just a traumatic, I'm not saying the proper word, but in an environment that has lots of little t trauma and maybe even some big traumatic events in their life. And so I believe strongly that Youth 180 is doing everything they can to address those issues. I remember when my daughter was a teenager, we started noticing signs of depression, but we didn't have the dialogue. We didn't have the narrative. We didn't have a Youth 180 sending that message about depression isn't just, you kind of thought if someone's depressed or if they have a mental illness, then they're sick and they need to go to a hospital. We don't deal with them in the community. Oh, she's got this mental health disorder. So you kept it within your family. And when traumas would happen, whether it's family death, or in our family we had family death, we had I was diagnosed with cancer, we had all this stuff that exploded on her little heart and mind at such a stage in her development, and we didn't give her the tools because we didn't have the tools to give her to help deal with that situation. For some people, even one sip, my daughter talked about when she was in recovery, she would talk about the first time she tried alcohol, that something inside of her grew and she wanted that feeling and she chased after that feeling from then on. If you have a substance use disorder, you cannot by yourself overcome it. You would not try to treat yourself for cancer. You would not try to treat yourself for strep throat or something like that. So if that's the case and you have a substance use disorder, you cannot just white knuckle grip it and overcome it by yourself. You have to get help. And so I would encourage her, please get into a recovery program, rehabs and things like that. And it just didn't seem to stick. She would maybe not be doing heroin. Maybe she would stop doing the opioids. But then we discovered that alcohol and pot, or marijuana, excuse me for saying pot, but marijuana was her drug of choice at the end. And sadly, she lost her battle to a substance use disorder. And that's what happens with someone struggling with a substance use disorder. They become a shell of who they are. Um, so my goal is not just to dwell on her death, dwell on her life, but also dwell on the ability to overcome that and to give them hope where there may not be hope. And so that's the goal of my service at Youth 180 and the work that we do there.